Hey YouTube, it's Wisconsin Shoe Guy here. I'm going to do a prep work on a new pair of shoes, and I thought it would be helpful for everybody to see kind of the steps that I take on doing it. Sometimes I use Pure Polish products when I do it. Sometimes I use Saphir products. Today I'm going to actually use Saphir products. So with that, let's get started and see kind of what products that I brought for today. Just really quick, start with Severe Renovateur. Um, it is a really good base coat for shoes. If the shoes are old and have been sitting on the shelf a while, I'll actually use a Bic 4 conditioner, which is this. Before I get started, but these shoes are MTO, and I know that they just opened the factory to do it, so I'm just going to use the Renovateur as part of my regimen. Then got a few brushes here that I'll use as well. I've got a boar hair brush that I'll use to rough it up, make it ready to receive product. And then I'll also use this in between coats while I use creams and maybe my first coat of wax. This is a horsehair brush, which I use to buff up the wax. And then after I've got my mirror going, then I'll use this goat hair brush in order to work with the mirror. So I'm going to just use those, and I'm put this out here. Now, in terms of cream polish, after the Saphir Renovateur dries, then I'm going to do a mixture of colors. So you can see I have a light tan and a tan, and I have a mahogany and a mid-brown, which I'm going to layer on the toes to give it that little dark effect. And then I have from a wax perspective, I'm going to use light tan wax on the whole shoe, and then I have a dark brown, which I'll use just on the toes and a little bit on the heels, just to create a little depth of color. Now these shoes that I'm going to be doing have a mixed pattern of leather. So I have, this is Carmina, and they call this a llama tumbled leather, and it's a calfskin, but it is printed, and so it has this this beautiful pattern that's put into it. So I'm gonna use that and go over this and be able to do it. And I'll pull some things out, like here are the extra laces that come with it. I hadn't pulled those out yet, so these are brand new. Just took them out of the box and did an unboxing video. So I want to make sure that I get these in. But again, with the toe, I want to make sure that I have that depth of color on the toe, and I want to make sure that I build up a high shine to protect it. But I also don't want to lose this medallion. This is medallion number 15 from Carmina, and something that I spent a lot of time deciding which one I wanted on there. And so want to make sure that I I'm able to save that as part of what I'm doing as well. So, and then outside of the waxes and that I'm going to be using, I have just a regular shine cloth, which is clearly from a t-shirt. And then I've got a couple of small Saphir cloths as well. So we're just going to go ahead and get started here. I'm going to do the polishing today inside this box. This is actually a shoebox lid from Yosol, and I believe that this is actually made by Macariello in Italy. So and there's a shoebox that he makes for his shoes. So with that, we're going to we'll go ahead and get started. Now, first thing first, as I look at these shoes with the tumbled leather, I'm going to really want to be able to massage the Saphir into this, and I want to make sure that it stays in pretty well. But I also don't want to mess up these brand new shoelaces, so I'm going to take the shoelaces out. So we'll just pull those out here. Now, I always relace new shoes anyway, because the lacing that they use is always this really annoying pattern where they just lace one side of the shoe. Usually they just lace one side of the shoe. These were actually laced properly, so that's always interesting. So we'll take the laces out, and we'll get this one set up here to to do it. Now, you always want to try to find a clean place on the cloth that you're using. So I'm doing this here. And you want to do this in such a way that you can actually tie it off so that it doesn't get loose while you're working. That'll actually save you a lot of time, and you don't have to keep messing with the cloth. If you've seen me doing some of my shine videos in the past, I seem to spend more time messing with the cloth than I do actually shining. At least that's the impression my pea-sized intellect has on it, and it annoys me, so I try not to put myself in that position. So then here we go. All right. Now, saphir, renovateur. It's very hard to see whether or not that picture is coming out okay, so I'm going to just assume that it is for a minute. If you have trouble with it, I can. I invested in a new camera to try to build this up for my channel, and I will be converting to that after it arrives next week. So just you know, part of the journey, I guess, in this whole YouTube thing. So very little. You know, sometimes it's better to just use your hand. Feel like you have a little bit more control and you don't lose as much into the cloth. You know, this saphir renovateur, it's not cheap. It's not terrible, but it's not cheap. So I always want to make sure that you get the most mileage out of it. And tumbled leather, you really don't have to add a lot of polish to. Part of the reason that you want it is for that rough look. And so I want to make sure that I am able to preserve that as much as possible. A couple of blemishes from the factory. The coat, you can see there, really, really, really minor. But I want to make sure that I have a good base for that so that I can get through that. Now, when I get to the actual vitello, this here, I'm going to use a lot less saphir. So I'll use that, will be all the saphir I use on that, here, tongue, and here on the cap. Just doesn't require a lot, and I'm familiar with it, and I know how it responds. Now the heel caps. Go, and you can see how this is coming along. So now, the inside of these shoes is kid leather. Now that, yes, that is a baby goat. And so not the first time, or this is the first time I've actually used this kind of leather, but it's very, very thin as linings go. And so just for the first time, and I'm not going to put the tree back in this until this dries, but just getting that cleaned out. You can see there's a little junk that's at the bottom of the shoe as well. You know, they're brand new from the factory, never been worn. So just want to make sure that that gets there as well. So we'll take that, and now we'll unlace and work on the last shoe here. Actually excited about these new beechwood trees. I've been, for those of you who I'm friends with on Facebook and YouTube and stuff, and have been dealing with the consistent barrage of questions for me on these trees. I really like the way the arch is on the back instead of the knob. I find that really pleasing to the eye, and looking forward to having it. So here we'll start here. to do a drop there, drop here. Now, what I didn't do, which I normally do, and I'll probably scold myself later for, is I did not brush the shoes before I started working on them, which I should really do. So that's probably a whoopsie, but certainly a different thing. One thing I like about this pattern, when you're doing a customized shoe, Carmina, you have to go through a bunch of different patterns. And obviously, this is an 80610. It's not the only Adelaide pattern that they have. But one of the things that I liked about it is that it's different from my traditional Adelaides because this part here on the inside goes out to here instead of having the U throat come all the way up. So it's kind of a wide U. And I think that that's, it's a nice look. Certainly something that, look forward to and happy with. So this is it's all worked in. Make sure that there, I feel like it's a little dry down at the bottom there. So I'm gonna take this and just get down on the edges there. You know, the edges when you're polishing are really easy to overlook, and then you don't get the good look after a few wears. It starts to look weird because you didn't get all the way down to the bottom. So something to keep in mind. All right, so that one's there. Now we have this. We're back with the right foot, and now we're gonna brush. So do vertical, and then we do a crosshatch. Vertical. And crosshatch. All right, let me fix the camera angle here a bit. Now, there's an entire school of thought as it relates to shoe care that really talks about, do we really need to do any more than that? This is a conditioner. You know, I'm putting the conditioner on my shoes. It should provide some leeway for the shoe to evolve over time, and you get that nice natural patina on your shoes. And that's not an incorrect assumption. Shoes do pretty well with that. But if you're hard on your shoes, and I am, then you need to protect them just a little bit more. So that is an area that I find that I need to work on a little bit. So give them a little more. Now I'm going to take my shoe cream, which may also be known as polish, depending on where you are used to it from. And I'm going to start rubbing that in. And again, you got to really work it in and massage it into the grain. So this tumbled leather, it's not going to change the color. There is a lot of pigment in this. So like if I was using a cloth, the cloth would definitely change color. And you can choose to just use neutral as well. I'm choosing the darker on the vamp because when I looked at this on the customization website, I thought this color and that color were a lot closer. And they're not far apart, but I was really hoping for a little bit more of a uniform look in terms of color. So I'm just adding this small amount of pigment, which will allow it to really kind of soak in and even it out just a little bit. Not very much, but just a little bit. So again, rubbing it in. this isn't a race or anything. So, all right. So now I've done that. I've added that layer, and so now I'm going to use a slightly lighter layer on the end. Now, I've gotten pretty good at recognizing different polishes, and this is a bottle that came with a pair of shoes that I got from Herring, and it has a very, very similar feel to Saphir. They're in different bottles. If you look really carefully, this one, by the way, this is the Shoe Snob, and if you look at the label on the bottom, it's exactly the same label and the same bottle that you can get if you buy Saphir from the factory store in France. So I'm pretty sure that that is made for the Shoe Snob by Saphir, but that's a pure assumption on my part. I'm not an expert. I'm not looking at any inside, data or anything. So, but I'm just gonna do a little bit here, a little bit here, a little bit there, a little bit there, and then a little bit here, and go around the surface. I'm gonna have to brush it out because I got some in the brogue holes, which you can see right there. So again, the pigment is there. It definitely makes a difference. It will definitely help cover up scratches and things like that in the future. In the meantime, on the first wear, does it make an enormous difference? No, not really. It just helps create a base coat. Okay. And I'm not even going to put a second coat of pigment on. I'm just doing the first coat to provide a little bit of protection under the wax. Now I'm going to go back here. I'm going to put my glove on my rag back on, because when I look at this, I really need to get that in. I'm really getting a lot here in these brogue holes. These brogue holes are big. It's always nice when you're looking at the medallion online and you're like, oh, that's got some really big holes, and I like the way that looks, and yeah, that's really unique. But what you don't think about is, holy cow, I got wax in that stuff. That's going to take a lot of work to get out. Or maybe something that we all ought to be thinking about. Okay. Now you notice I'm doing a little bit of cross here with the colors. So I got the brown, which is on here, and you can see it's coming off already, which is normal. Again, we're just trying to, and doing a little bit of work here to put it back in. All right. Now, sometimes you got to take a little rag, get in there. Now, I have a brogue pin brush as well, which I can use when I go and I actually do the final layers on this with my boar hair brush. If it doesn't come out, then I will use that and can actually force it out. But I like to just use the cloth to get that stuff out. I feel like it's a little bit calmer way of being able to do it. So, all right. So that's shoe number one with your first coat of cream polish along it there. Now, this is an interesting problem. I got wax in the fudging line right here. That is, it's gonna look ugly. So I'm gonna get that out right away. And Yeah, I may have to use some edge dressing to darken that up again, but it's got like a little edge there. By the way, a lot of people will talk about shoe imperfections and imperfections on brands and things like that. I will tell you that if you spend time polishing your shoes, you will notice imperfections on every shoe, right? I mean, my George Cleaverleys, I noticed one. It's very, very, very small, but I did. You know, a lot of people on the Allen Edmonds boards, you know, are really very hypersensitive to that, I guess. It's the best way to put it. And I understand that, right? I mean, the shoes are expensive. Carmina and, you know, some of these others are even more expensive. But as you continue to go down the path, you'll see, you know, significant or not insignificant you know, blemishes every now and then. I saw the one here on the ink on the tumbled leather. I'm sure I'll see more. It's part of the thing. Now you'll notice when I did that, when I used my hand, I took a big clump of it. When I use the brush, or when I use the cloth, I just rub along the outside. That's it. That allows me to go over the surface without getting into the brogue holes. So I'm learning from my mistakes, and you can see I'm not getting inside. Okay, now coming up here, doing the tongue. Okay. If you've watched Kirby Allison, if you've watched Justin Fitzpatrick, if you've watched Preston Soto, and you're talking, or you know, MB Shoe Doc, well, there's a lot of different folks out there that do polish videos. And you know, I've done a couple, but this is the first one I'm actually really narrating all the way through. Usually I'll just do them on like, you know, hyper speed so you can kind of see what I did, but it's a 3-minute look. If you watch those videos, they say the word less is more a lot. And I think really this is what they're talking about when they say that. The way I was able to just, you know, do a couple twirls in the polish and be able to apply it with a great amount of control to the shoe where I'm polishing is a big deal. And I think that makes a big difference in what we're trying to show here. So now I'm gonna go and I'm going to do this part here. You know, the other thing, of course, is that you start to realize that you might miss things along the way. So for instance, I realized that I forgot to do the inside of the kid leather on this shoe. I did it on the other shoe with the Renovator, but I didn't do it on this one. So that's something I'm gonna have to do. So again, I'm taking it. Now I'm using a little bit more here, but remember, I want to actually get the pigment into this leather on the vamp here. So just spending a little bit more time rubbing it in. Now I'm gonna push the camera down so you can see. Now, they talk about circular motions. When you're getting into the green leather, that circular motion and that pressure is really important, because what it allows you to do is it allows you to get into the leather really well. Now, you'll see I used a little bit of stuff there, and that gets all bunched up in the pinking. Now, that'll mostly come off when I brush it, but if I'm worried about it, which I guess I am, I'll take a little bit of time and just get that off. And here I've got a brogue hole that cut a clump of leather. So get that out there as well. Okay. So this one's had a few minutes to dry. You can see it's not necessarily a long time to dry. Now I'm gonna take the tan here that I was using. Put this away. Do the same thing with this one. And then we'll actually start working on the caps after I do the first brush. So, okay. So, and again, I'm using a boar hair brush. I got this particular brush from Abbey Horn. And I'm just going to allow the brush to heat it up a little bit. And make sure that I'm getting into the grain along the sides there. I think if I do this again, I might actually just get an entire shoe made in this tumbled leather. It would be a lot less formal, I think, but definitely a good look. Now, as you'll recall, I had some issues with the broguing here, and so I'm going over it, but I'm also not seeing any big lifting, which means that there's not a lot of excess polish that's in there that's getting redistributed around, and there isn't any on the brush. So that's good. All right, so we've got this, that, and this up here. Don't neglect the tongue. If you have a V-gap, I haven't worn these yet, so I don't know if I have a V-gap, but if you do have a V-gap, you don't want the tongue to miss things. So, all right, so now we're going to start building some color. Okay. And this is where we really want it to be on the surface, but we don't want to overdo it. Now, that's mahogany color. It's there. And the way I do this is I just do the toe, and I do go over the brogue a little bit, as you see. Very, very light, very thin coats. Okay. And I'm going to let that dry, work on the other shoe. And then I'm going to do 2 coats of mahogany, and then I'm going to do 2 coats of mid-brown on top of it. And that's how I'm going to build up the color on that toe. See? Very straightforward. Again, not overdoing it. Now, we're going to work on that toe. Pull off my finger. And now when I look at the other shoe here, compared to it, you can see it's had a little bit to dry. And not very much darker. Okay. Okay. Now, a very light piece on the toe there. Mahogany done. Now, a lot of people will ask, what questions to use or what colors to use. How do we figure out, how to do this? And I am a big proponent in very, very small, gradual steps over the life of the shoe. I've done a number of experiments over my lifetime where it's too much too soon and I have to take it off. I'm trying not to do that with this latest round of shoes, trying to just get it right the first time. You see, it's just a very, very subtle difference. It's not huge, just subtle. And you can see how much came off. That's about how much we want to see. It's not. Okay. So what's got? Very subtle amount of red on the end of the shoe. Now we take it one step further with our medium brown. Now, the key to this is fading. Okay. So I try to make it very, very thin layer. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to really stay focused on the end here. Yeah. Just very little on the end. Front of the brogue. And now it's going to dry. And challenge is sometimes it can be so thin you can't see it. That's not necessarily a bad thing. Sometimes that just means that the layer is there. But if you put too much on, then it'll streak when it dries. So I'm just going to rub along here while it's affixing. Let it rub in. Again, it's subtle. When we use the waxes on the outside, the waxes do not affix to it at all, right? So, gonna see. All right. Very thin layer. No streaks. That's what you're really going for here. Now we go back, we put on this to just start rubbing it off. Again, just a very subtle color, not very pronounced at all. See, very, very subtle. Very subtle. And that's how we get started. So stay tuned. We'll have a little bit more on this as we continue. Hey, I'm back again, and now we're going to take a look at how these shoes are coming along. So we've got some, done some waxing, just basic wax, both in the light brown and then some dark brown. And now what we're going to do is we're going to try to raise these shines using some mirror gloss. So here's the mirror gloss. And it's nice and cracked. So we're just going to apply this very gently on here. Out of the way. You know, the darkening that I did on the toe seems to have gotten pretty much controlled by the wax. It's an unfortunate reality. I'm going to take this and just go over that a little bit. Makes the shine come out. A little thin layer here. There's not a lot of water here. Try to take the wax and use a little bit of water to buff it out. Trick is not to use too much water because then it'll bubble, it'll crack, and you'll get all kinds of nasty stuff. Use a little bit, you can raise the shine out. Now, It's always a debate, right? What's the best product to use? You know, I've done this with pure polish. I've done this with saphir. I've done it with regular wax, and I'm using the mirror gloss now. And they all have their advantages and disadvantages, I'll say. But I personally think that the pure polish allows you to do it a lot faster. If I was trying to, you know, do a refresh, I would probably use the pure polish without a doubt. I would. What I really like the saphir for is the first coat, and of course for shell. So getting back to it. These things are a little dusty. I'm gonna go ahead and put the trees back in. As I continue to do this, I like to have that. Now these saphir cloths, especially when they're new like this, do get very linty. See it blowing around here. After a while, I will switch over to a dress shirt material I usually use for mirrors. So I'm starting to be able to see the light reflection on the ceiling, but as you can see here, the reflection has no definition yet. So what we want to do is we want to wax it until it has a good definition. So I'm going to just go in here, I'm going to take the mirror gloss, put a really thick coat on. And I got some in the broguing there, so I'm going to use my little pen device here. Get that out. And of course, you do that, then you have to really polish to get the shine out on what you just did. Starting to see the definition come through very, very lightly. Still got a number of coats I'm going to do, but I'm going to put this one off. I'm going to put the toe to the side now, and I'm going to work on the base coat of the heels. Just trying to get a really, really thin coat. Try to build up the shine. We want that nice glissage that turns into a mirror. Let's see how quickly it changes with the right proportion of water. Pressure. Okay. So got a nice start right here. Put that to the side. finish that off with my the high shine cloth. Now, time to do the other shoe. One coat. No, I didn't put a lot of coats here, and I'm sorry I didn't film the regular waxing piece. I was watching TV with the family and didn't want to get distracted from that with trying to film while doing it. So. Why that happened. Just took a big chunk, which I didn't mean to take. So. Do this. Okay. So now, come back to a high shine cloth. Again, this is just t-shirt material. Go on the heel. Okay. So, I'm going to take a very small drop of water, add that to it, see what happens here. Just slowly reconcile what's there. Another small coat. So this is coat 3 for all intents and purposes. These two here, so you can see the light definition coming around. So I have a couple ring lights above me, and what I'd like to be able to do is eventually I want to be able to get to the point where you can actually see the ring in the glissage. That will be when we know we've gotten to where we need to be. Trying to see the definition there of 1. It's not really good definition though. We got some work to do. Sometimes you do a thick coat and you just let it dry. Just buff it as well as you can. And sometimes if you've got just the right connection of water already in your buildup, you can put wax on like that and just glassage it right up, which is what's happening here. So let's work on the heel. This glassage on this heel, not very strong. Some work to do. Stuff off my hand. Sometimes I feel like I got wax buildup on the inside of the rag, and the only thing I can do is take my finger out and start over. Now, when you get good streaking like this, that means you're getting close. Look, oh, look at that. So that's more definition. And that's what I mean by close. Still a little bit of ways to go on this side. So again, it's all about patience, being able to find what you're looking at, and being able to get the effect that you want, the way that you want it, where you want it on the shoe. So you can see that one's coming in really nice. This side as well. And for heels, that's probably as good as I'll take it. I don't really find the need to go much further with heels. It's the toes where you really want the shine to pop. Heels without the shine look incomplete, right? But once you build the good shine, you don't have to really work at it, in my opinion. You want it to be really good. You want it to be solid, but it's not like you want to be able to see the color of the sky. in the shine. Where in the toe, you definitely want a good mirror if that's what you're going for. Oh, yeah, not quite. Better. This is the thing that I like about shining is you start off, it's all waxy, you start moving it together, and without even adding the water, after you've got a good base going, it just glissages over, and you get that nice improvement right away. And you add a little water, it gets even better. Down, add another layer. I can see indistinct shapes, but not the real mirror yet. What I'm going to do though, this is part of the trick to it. Sometimes it just needs time. So I'm going to take this, I'm going to set it aside. I'm going to bring back this one. And just start. And remember, I use this with the other rag, not this one. So this is the first time using this rag to build it up. Now, I like spraying the shoe directly with a mist. Some people are not comfortable doing that. I always pick the mist off the table too. That's why I do it on the wood surface, not on the cloth. And we've got beginnings of a glissage, but not a good one yet. You can see the rings. You can't see the third light, much less any definition. You can see 3 lights now. Plus, there are 3 lights. So better. We're just going to move to the heels now. This side just shines up a lot easier on the heel. All right, pretty good stuff there. And for the heel, I'm satisfied that that's good enough. For the front, I think that that's good enough. This is what I would call a medium shine, and I usually stop here on the first shine and try to get a little bit better on subsequent ones. And, you know, a shine on your shoes is something that builds over time, so you don't want to be too persnickety right out of the gate. Just let it build and get better as you go. That is something that has always done well for me. And here, you can see the rings in the shine. Here, here, not quite as defined, but not bad. Here. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna just over it. All right. And now, key thing, in my opinion, to a really, really good finish on your shoes is using a finish brush. All right. Just elevates the shine a little bit more. gets any stuff off that you don't want to be there. And that's how we do it. Again, this is a goat hair brush, so very, very soft. Feels kind of like cashmere, which should. Now, I'm not going to win any awards for this, but as a good, solid first step with a unique pair of shoes, that's going to be just right. So, onto the lacing. So when you lace Oxfords, people are always going to ask you to do bar lacing, and I agree. Bar lacing looks the best on Oxfords. And I got a braided rope lace. That's the one that I chose for these particular shoes. When you do a customize on your shoe, you do customize the laces as well, which is a nice little touch. Okay. Now, I think that when you first wear shoes, you want to do a bar lace, but you want to make sure that you have some tension in the lacing, and your typical bar lacing does not have very much tension. So I do what they call an under cross bar, okay, or crossbar lacing. So it looks like a bar on the top, but underneath you're still doing a cross. Now, if you don't have if you have a really big V gap on the Oxford, which is this V right here, then this is probably not advisable because you'll be able to see it. But I have worn Carminas for a while, and I tried on this last, and I don't think I'll have much of a thing to worry about there. So I'm going to use that, and that's going to be how I lace them. A lot of people like doing the Berluti knot. As a matter of fact, I've gotten a number of comments that I should use a Berluti knot. I like just the plain knot. I do like it when the tension leaves it this way and doesn't pull it forward and back. So you have to know how to tie the knot just right. But as long as you don't go backwards through it, you can do pretty well. So this is Wisconsin Shoe Guy, and that is my first polish on my new Carmina Capto Oxford Semi Brogues or Adelaides. And appreciate you watching. Thank you.